Hey, loyal Joe and Joe listeners. Before we start today's episode, I want to remind everyone that on November 16th, that's next Wednesday, we are having our very first live episode. It's going to be held at Golden Apple Comics, which is at 7018 Melrose Avenue out here in Los Angeles, California, with none other than Aubrey Sitterson, author of the current ongoing G.I. Joe series at IDW. We're very excited. We're going to have a signing, we're going to have a Q&A, and we're going to record a live show where we all watch an episode together. So please come on out to Golden Apple Comics. The signing starts at 7 p.m. You can find out more at goldenapplecomics.com or check out the invitation on Facebook. Thanks so much, and now you Joe.
You are listening to the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hi, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. I'm your host, Joe Slepsky, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. And with me this week is a very special guest, a friend of mine, who I have been dying to get on the show because he is one of the biggest Joe fans I know. That I know, that I'm aware of. His name is Kevin Umbricht, and he is with me right here today. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody.
Thank you.
Kevin, you are a video game producer.
Mm-hmm.
You're a G.I. Joe fan.
Mm-hmm.
You are also another special thing that we're going to get into a little side business that you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
But say hello to the fans here at Joe on Joe.
Hey, everyone out there in Joe land.
Now tell us about your video game producing days. You worked on titles over at Activision.
Yeah.
Spider-Man franchise, right?
I got into the games industry when I moved out to L.A. a little bit later in life. It was one of those things where I didn't know you could really be in video games because I was living in New York and Rhode Island and various places. And
you're from Rhode Island, right?
I'm from Connecticut.
Connecticut. Right.
I went to school at Rhode Island School of Design, and then moved out to L.A., then moved to Brooklyn for many years. Wanted to get into games, but there wasn't really a lot of opportunities. There were very few companies at that time, Rockstar being one of them, but it was like corporate headquarters. Sure. So I worked in children's publishing. And then when I moved out to L.A., finally, to work on some film stuff with a friend of mine, Daniel Strange, plugging him, I was looking for work, and I was looking for work in animation and film, and games jobs came up, and it was like a comparable experience needs, and so I just was like, screw it, I'm going to try this, and immediately got a job at Activision.
So what exactly does being a producer entail?
It is, so I work at a publishing producer, which means that we work with developers who create the games, but we get all of the ancillary things done. So we help get VO recorded. We help, in which I've worked with some people what we might hear in this episode.
Really? Such as?
Let's see.
I don't mean to put you on the
Dan
spot.
Gilzevan.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if he's in this one.
Was he a Joe voice?
He was Bumblebee on Transformers, but I'm pretty sure he was someone in Joe. I'm not need to be fact checked on that one. But legal approvals. It doesn't sound like the fun stuff, but it can actually be the fun stuff.
It's all the nitpick little things.
Yeah. And if you work with certain developers who maybe aren't as familiar with the source material, so I worked on all Spider-Man games.
Yeah.
Sometimes the little nuances we get to handle. So there were little creative opportunities every now and then to either write dialogue or co-direct VO sessions, things like that.
Didn't you have a big part in that with, was it Web of Shadows or?
It was Shattered Dimensions, where I was the first ever voice of Spider-Ham.
What?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love Spider-Ham. That's fantastic.
Technically credited on IMDb. People have done it since, but yeah, I was the first actual voice of Spider-Ham.
That's awesome. So if you play Shattered Dimensions, Spider-Ham is Kevin.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I know you're a big Spider-Ham fan, so that's like a dream come true.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It only happened because Neil Patrick Harris, in my mind, wasn't doing the voice correctly. He was originally doing it. Yeah. And and I was like, hey, guys, I don't think this is right. And so it's like, it should sound more like this. And they recorded my take of it sounding like this, and then they used that in the
all about Eve Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah. Hopefully not for the last time.
Oh, fantastic. I like that. That's really cool. And that's one of the better games, one of the better Spider-Man games they've done. So that's Shattered Dimensions great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, really nice work on that.
That was fun. Like, basically, it's my job to try to make the games better than they can be, you know?
Well, I think when it comes to gaming, a lot of times what separates once you have a competent product, that's the biggest thing. First, people look like if there's latency or if there's bugs, people are like, this game's garbage. But once you have that competency locked down, which I would imagine with Activision should be pretty much across the board, it's those little touches that make people really love a game.
Yeah,
it's having Spider-Ham.
It's fan service.
It's total fan service, and that's what makes gamers really just latch onto a certain title because they know they can see that attention to detail because they're spending hours and hours and hours in there. And I think it's that added complexity that really makes gamers just fall in love with real specific titles.
Well, it also makes it fun to work on.
Yeah.
If you, I grew up reading Spider-Man. Like, that was the comic. That and West Coast Avengers were like my two comics, and I was able to live out weird fantasies of educating the developers and educating players on certain nuances and elements of the characters that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So
that's really cool. There's another thing then that you were a part of, which I had seen before I knew you as an actual person. Mm-hmm. I saw it when I was back. I think I was back in Chicago when it came out, and it was a G.I. Joe fan film.
Yes.
Or how would you describe it? So tell me about
it's
this.
It's like a love letter, basically. So
what was it called?
It was called The Ballad of G.I. Joe.
And is it still available online?
It is on Funny or Die.
Funny or Die.
Various, probably YouTubes and
awesome.
Things
We'll find the link to it and we'll tweet it out.
Cool. It was my friend Daniel Strange, who I mentioned earlier, and I wrote a song just randomly one night. We were just messing around, and we just wanted to know what life would be like back at G.I. Joe headquarters and back at the Terradrome when the fighting ended, and who are these people and what are they doing? And then it just turned into like this comedy song. And then when the G.I. Joe movie was coming out,
the first one.
Yeah. We pitched it to Funny or Die, and they loved the idea, and they had access to basically any celebrity we wanted. They were our casting agency.
Awesome.
So we miraculously got people like Julianne Moore and Billy Crudup and Zach Galifianakis and all these people, and I personally got a dream come true where I got Sergeant Slaughter to be in it.
That's
and Dan,
amazing.
I was a little disappointed because Dan was on the East Coast at the time and got to shoot with him. I wasn't able to be there, but I talked to him on the phone and his agent and made this deal happen. And it was just, it's not a deal. No one got paid, including us. But yeah, it was just this little project that had been in the back of our minds for a long time, and we found an outlet to get it created. And I haven't watched it in a few years, but describe the events. I remember everyone is in real Joe costumes. We did full costumes. So describe what it is. It's kind of a take on the what's the More Than Words, the Extreme video. So it's stars me and Dan. I'm actually singing in it, and it's the song around sort of these little intimate moments of each of the characters, and it's things like Storm Shadow has to take out the trash, and Shipwreck really likes the Wonder Years, and Zartan at the end of the day, because he dresses up as other people constantly, doesn't know who he himself is. Well, enough talk about this. We're going to play this live for our Joe and Joe listeners. So here we go with The Ballad of G.I. Joe.
Exclusive. Two forces waging endless war. Every day they waste more. But when the day is done and they go home, what do they do for fun? Night falls on G.I. Joe headquarters. Shipwreck just got season 1 of the Wonder Years. Doc is reading Dostoevsky. It's no jobs drinking beer. I heard he likes to drink quite a bit. Snake Eyes is painting landscapes. makes him feel at peace. His latest is a series of sunsets on the beach. And Scarlet lies awake and wonders, will Duke still love me when I'm old? I see the way he looks at Lady J. Someday he's gonna leave me in the cold. No, Duke, don't go. Night falls on the Cobra Terrordrome. Storm shadows taking out the trash. Tomax is boosting Zaymot's wallet. He needs the extra cash. Cobra Commander loves 70s boogie. He's a big fan of Three Dog Night. What is the loneliest number? When he takes over the world, the first thing he'll do is make them reunite. And Zartan sits up late and wonders, I wonder who is the real me? And in the end, do I really have any friends? Love me for being Zartan, love me for being me. Destro and the Baroness, Destro and the Baroness, practicing the clarinet. Destro and the Baroness, practicing the clarinet, practicing the clarinet, practicing the clarinet. Talking on his ham radio. His best friend is some guy he doesn't even know. If things could always be this way, wouldn't that be nice? But no dice. Cobra's got the mass device.
Kevin, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
That is,
Did it bring back good memories?
yeah,
or frustrating
great
memories? Or
well,
what?
there were production hiccups, and you're
Yeah.
piggybacking on actors' schedules who are there because their agent set this thing up. Some of them, but like some people were like really rad. Like Henry Rollins, we sat there and talked for an hour while we were setting up. Well, I forget who was in line in front of him, but it was good. Like there's a couple huge ordeals with Comic-Con, our Snake Eyes and our Cobra Commander. We had to rent a studio outside of Comic-Con San Diego and bring those actors in, and they're just cosplayers.
What was the budget on this? If you
maybe
you can share.
$3,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I made every costume in it with the exception of 2. So I was costumer. There were Tomax and Zaymot, and then the cosplayers who like had the really intricate costumes. Were the only ones that I didn't make in my apartment.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Well, thank you for coming on Joe on Joe. Today, we are going to get into an episode called Cobra Quake.
Yes.
Do you recall this
I
one at all?
don't,
Okay.
honestly.
Well, then we're going to go into it fresh with you.
Awesome.
And if you want to find Kevin, you can find him at The Flowermonger, which is strange. We haven't talked about flowers. Tell me a little bit about Flowermonger. What is that?
Flowermonger is my basically alter ego where I am a floral designer on the side.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit away from launching a side project where is a delivery service for my designs to your home here in Los Angeles.
Which I did not. I was never aware that you were into floral design, and when you started sharing those photos on social media, I love it. They look great.
Thank you.
They're really amazing, and I know you were taking classes, and and just studying your craft. And I'm really impressed with what you're doing, and that you're turning something you love into a business is admirable.
Yeah, and I'm
to say the
doing it
least.
very slowly. So
Hey,
I'm not jumping whole hog into
Rome, Day, Brick. There's something in there about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I love it. So if you want to find them, you can find them on Instagram at @theflowermonger. And if you want to find me, I'm Joe on Joe Pod on Instagram and Joe on Joe Pod Facebook. And send me an email at joeonjoepod@gmail.com. If you're interested in being a guest on Joe and Joe, we're happy to have you. Now, we are going to get into this episode called Cobra Quake.
Flint. Hello.
What does this do for you? What does this opening bring to mind for you?
They never made that vehicle of this giant like Cobra wing thing. I was really disappointed.
I've said the same thing. Yeah. How great would that have been? That would have been like on par with the USS Flag, you know?
Yeah, my next door neighbor Jamie had he was able to get all the big stuff. So he had the Terradrome and all this stuff. So I always lived vicariously through him and just played next door at his place.
Well, tell me about your collection. So what was your personal collection primarily made of?
Started with second series, so I didn't get into it until who was the first character I got?
Flint?
No, I never liked Flint all that much. Basically, Dreadnoks was where I started with.
So episode starts out Cobra Quake, written by Ted Peterson. And we've got an airliner flying through the sky, but it's not just any airliner.
G.I. Joe
it's
commercial
the
airlines.
G.I. Joe commercial airliner being flown by Gung Ho, of all people.
Don't worry, Gung Ho.
And Flint.
We'll be out of it pretty soon.
Did you ever question why everyone on the team was licensed to fly?
I read you.
No, that was like a suspension of disbelief. I figured they're all versatile in their own way.
And it made,
is he doing like the B.A. Baracus thing right now, where is like I don't want to be on no plane?
He could be. In a previous episode, they quoted the A-Team. Quick Kick quoted Hannibal when he said, "I love it when a plan comes together." So I wouldn't be surprised if they're drawing from the A-Team. I love when they use characters like Wild Weasel, kind of the secondary like B-string characters.
They didn't bother to shade Wild Weasel in that shot either.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
Well, that raises a question though. If Gung Ho is so air abhorrent, why is he flying the commercial airliner?
Well, he's co-piloting. Let's he's not actually in charge here. And why does the G.I. Joe jet that is actually labeled G.I. Joe jet have no defense mechanisms whatsoever?
Yeah, I don't. This is a curious one.
This is like the band. The rock and roll should be on here. This is the flight playing, some concert in the middle of the Midwest.
Well, the Rattlers have shot down this plane, or at least they're attempting to. They hit the plane, and they're basically telling Flint to, you better land this plane.
That's like 12 missiles that missed.
They blasted a runway out of the jungle.
They're actually helping them.
Oh yeah, because they want to get at what's on the plane.
Would you like us to pull up?
Will this thing cause a quake? Perhaps.
Maybe.
All right, Harrier jets.
I'm always amazed by the forethought and planning that both squads have, where they had these APCs or the all-terrain vehicles were ready to go in that area.
I just imagine that they had like millions of them everywhere at any given point in time.
Well, that's a very good theory on that. We got Silver Mirage, we've got Slugger going on. So what kind of vehicles did you have?
I had the water moccasin, right?
Yeah, the water moccasin with Copperhead.
With Copperhead. I had the Rattler. So that was kind of my biggest one. I was a figure collector, so my allowance could be spent on whatever I wanted to, but when you bought a vehicle, you could only buy the big thing.
Right,
and
right.
So same with Star Wars, same with the superpowers. It was just all about finishing the collection of the figures. But like I said, my neighbor had like a lot of the G.I. Joe stuff, so I would buy the figures that he didn't have. So we combined between the two of us our entire collections.
Well, we've got a aerial dogfight going on right now. Ace showed up in some Sky Strikers.
That was a pretty sweet move.
It's actually a very sweet move. And now that
Not
guy,
so
is he going... They got to show him fall out of the cockpit, right? And he's going to be hit by Coconut? Yes, he is.
Yep.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That's a little bonk there. So with their 20 missiles and 10 rattlers.
Look at
and
that. Did you see all the fake
It was a
people? It
ruse.
was a ruse. The whole thing was a ruse. And why was it a ruse?
Also, where did the
Wild Weasel has a
Joe
map on his knee, by the
vehicle
way.
come from? How did it even fit in the space of the plane?
Well,
like that made
Yeah, I mean,
little sense to me.
a little hollowed out carrier.
Ayo.
So
There she
we
is.
learned that the whole airline thing was a ruse, right? It makes me think in the production of this that they needed an opening segment that was a little more exciting than the rest of the episode. Because very much for the rest of the episode.
So this is going to be some sort of diplomatic.
Yeah, it's a completely kind of separate story. So I wonder if they're breaking the story and they have this story they want to tell, which is an awesome story. I love it.
That's the most realistic thing ever in a G.I. Joe episode.
It's pretty much a photo. We've got all the Joes. They're at a conference in Tokyo. All kinds of dignitaries are arguing and yelling.
Oh boy, that guy. There's a lot of 80s stereotyping happening right now.
Stereotyping. Yeah.
Solve anything at these meetings.
They usually don't. They just blow off steam.
Better than Cobra.
Does
blowing
Scarlet
them away.
are her lips as bright as Lady J's?
Lady J
She's
has
got
bright
some
neon purple lips in a big bad way. So now we go over to Hokkaido and we see Quick Kick with his trainees, which this is kind of the focus of the show. This is what I mean where so what we've seen so far mostly has been preamble until we get to this story that we got with, Bazooka and Quick Kick and all these trainees. I do like that this is the first outreach program to it looks like he's just kicked a grenade, by the way. It's a pine cone, but it looks like someone left a loose grenade laying around. It's like their first outreach to international waters, like international soldiers. You know what I mean? Because it's a real American hero.
So the October Guard. This is a preamble.
We've not seen the October Guard yet. Yeah. We've just got shirtless Quick Kick. And Bazooka's very upset. Bazooka's very sad.
Is this like a young Jinx that we're seeing? What was that?
That was Alfred Hitchcock. It was an Alfred Hitchcock move. Quick Kick is all about doing
Wow.
like movie cliches because he's the ex-Hollywood stuntman guy. So he's always quoting
I would
movies.
say this is like a green screen approach, but that technology didn't exist at that point,
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty great. So we've got Bazooka, and he's trying to learn how to defuse a bomb, and he's too dumb to figure it out.
Well, by cutting that wire, the middle digit disappeared.
So he did do something. Then.
Yes.
And the bomb blows up in his face. Of course, theoretically, except the ground starts to shake, and there's an actual quake here.
Quake.
So Quick Kick and Bazooka are in the middle of a huge earthquake. And Bazooka falls into a crevasse like at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And the young lady, assistant soldier, I forget what her name was, she's going to come into play a lot later, but she's warning us that the mountain's going to collapse. And Quick Kick, and we go to the break with Gravity once again playing a big part in the G.I. Joe commercial break.
After these messages.
Today's Filecard Feature is on the G.I. Joe Tank Commander, Steeler. His file name is Ralph W. Pulaski, so he's a good old Polish boy. His primary military specialty is the armor. Secondary specialty is the artillery transportation, and his birthplace is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's a grade E5. With a blue-collar middle-class background, Steeler was a heavy equipment operator prior to enlistment. Familiar and proficient with all NATO and Warsaw Pact AFVs, graduated out of the armor school at Fort Knox, top of his class. Special training and assignments, the Cadre X AFV project, the Aberdeen Proving Ground, the Artillery School, Fort Sif, AFV Desert Exercise, Fort Hood, the Covert Ops School at Langley, and he's a qualified expert in the M16, M19, 11A1, and the MAC-10. Here's an excerpt from his psychological profile by Major Al Milgram. It's A. Milgram, which is Al Milgram, who was a comic book guy. That's awesome. He is either the most normal, well-adjusted man in the world or the best disguised psychotic. There's something seething beneath the surface. He lies to me all the time, fabricating the most outlandish, say, you don't really want to know about Sergeant Pulaski. This is all about that time at Fort Leonard Wood. What? Why can't you leave me alone? All right, that was a weird one, ladies and gentlemen, but it's on his card. His peer personality assessment, this was by Clayton Abernathy, And despite our differences in upbringing and education, I must admit that I could almost like the fellow. You know, his manners are appalling. He stirs his coffee with a soup spoon. Appalling. You know, Clayton Abernathy, that's Hawk. I feel like that says a lot more about Hawk being a bit of a snob than it does about our boy Steeler. Steeler was fun, one of the original Joes. He drove the tank and had a good look with the green shirt, red collar. Now, the thing that differentiated him is they gave him the visor, like the square visor that cut across his helmet, and he had a pistol holster across his front. So, Steeler, Ralph W. Pulaski, we salute you.
Now, back to G.I. Joe.
That is a huge thing about G.I. Joe, if you don't recall. It's all about gravity at commercials. Someone's falling, something's falling on you, something's crashing.
Oh, you mean literal
Literally,
gravity,
yeah, no,
not
literally.
the
like
gravity
like
of the
8
situation.
out of every 10 commercial breaks has something to do with something hurtling at someone. They very rarely end up with like a pistol pointed at someone with like that kind of tension. It's all about I'm just not able to stop myself and I'm gonna hurt myself.
Apparently, every one of these buildings is filled with propane tanks or something because they
Everything
explode
is
on
fire.
impact.
Everything is burning. Quick Kick is very, very quick, pun intended, to eulogize Bazooka, but turns out he's alive and he's hanging on. He's hanging on by a thread. That crevasse, by the way, must be enormous. If they couldn't see him, you know what I mean? Like that's like, imagine if something like that just cracked open, the damage that it would have done.
It's just random rope hanging. It's a show of convenience.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
So now Cobra Commander is he's going to exercise his Quake machine, and they realize that Quick Kick and his trainees and Bazooka and the trainees
Have we
going to get in the way.
gotten a Quake device yet?
No.
So we've had weather dominators, we've had mass devices, but there's not a Quake machine until this point.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Then it wasn't a natural phenomenon.
It wasn't
Sweet
natural.
white gun he's got.
Japanese scientists are trying to prevent major earthquakes by setting off precisely placed explosions.
That's some knowledge you just dropped on us, Flint. Thank you. I
I
wonder if you ripped that from the headlines.
Right. When Bazooka gets here, I want you both to meet with Japan's leading seismologist.
So Flint sends Bazooka and Lady J to meet with Japan. So now, do you see how the plot's kind of trucking along with Japan and these earthquakes? Explain to me what the opening had to do with any of this. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like they had this idea for a story.
We didn't see the front of the cardboard people. Perhaps they were the Japanese seismologists?
Maybe they were supposed to be the UN people or something. That was part of the decoy. I don't know, but it's like two.
At least they're
they're very respectful. They slip their robes
yes.
on. Yeah. Now, if we're in Japan, it wouldn't be a trip to Japan without a visit by you know who.
Storm Shadow?
Maybe a couple dudes in blue robes. They come and they kidnap this Japanese scientist, who, in all stereotypes, is not just a scientist. He's like a Japanese Zen scientist in a robe and slippers. They can't meet him at a actual lab or anything. He has to be in like a pagoda. Oh no!
Wait a minute.
There's a whole. Oh, look at that! What's the point of that, though? So Dr. Morita was Storm Shadow the whole time, and he's got a bunch of other Storm Shadow dressed ninjas with him, which tells me this might be the Arashakage clan.
They are not worthy of my effort.
You know what I'm saying? He might have made a call back to his clan brothers and been like, "Hey, let's go do a job. We might be seeing the Arashakage ninjas."
Where is Snake Eyes? Why has Snake Eyes not appeared in this episode?
Should
then
be. I know. I get it. If you remember on the show, they did not do a lot of Snake Eyes Storm Shadow stuff. Storm Shadow's main nemesis for much of it actually was Spirit.
That's right.
Because they just, like that Zen kind of philosophy, they would play off each other. But Snake Eyes not being able to say anything, I think they felt they were kind of hamstrung with using him properly.
I'm a little disappointed because now Storm Shadow just seems like one of the pack.
Yeah. Well, it's honestly, I imagine it's a budget thing because they didn't have to do character designs.
But all you had to do was take off the Cobra logo. I
or
can't
make
imagine
them, or make them red. Like make all these dudes red, and then Storm Shadow just the only one in white.
Your own force has defeated you. I have escaped.
Now, what does that remind you of? Storm Shadow leaping over a wall, Kevin.
I'm gonna find out what happened to the real
Does it remind
Dr.
you of
Morita.
perhaps when he killed the Hardmaster and fled the Arashikage? Arashikage. We have a friend just joined us, Matt Keel, and he said it is Kyle.
You pronounce everything wrong.
I do.
Reese's
Jesus
Pieces.
Christ. We have a guest just joined us, Matt Kyle, and he gave us the correct pronunciation of Arashikage. Arashikage. Well, Arashikage is the proper pronunciation of Storm Shadow, filtered through my Chicago accent. So these guys try to chase Storm Shadow, and they run into a bit of a marionette fight. And
Okay, Scrap Iron is controlling puppets and has a very weird Cobra logo on his forehead that isn't quite right.
And he hits a button. The floor drops out beneath Quick Kick and Bazooka. And strangely, I would think if you're going to drop someone into... Well, here you go. There's the bomb.
Oh,
he drops a
here it
puppet
is.
that's
This is all set up
dynamite.
and payoff, right?
Yeah.
So now he has to disarm it.
He has to disarm a bomb to save their life. Now, this could be like...
Or they're runaway.
Yeah, or they run away. That's hilarious. Or it could be like Lethal Weapon, where he just screwed up and the whole place... But it is totally like Lethal Weapon. Was it Lethal Weapon 3? Which was the one where they blew up the whole building? Because
There's a lot of parallel things happening. So now there's the rope carrying Bazooka up to somewhere. The lettuce truck is here again.
Yeah, well, you know,
There was
it's
no lettuce
just
truck
much
before.
like Lucas described Star Wars as a rhyming poetry motif. G.I. Joe, I'd like to think, is just one big rhyming poetry.
I'm sorry, but this is not a
Lady J is confronted by Baroness, who
I'm about to give you something that is long
is...
overdue.
I just, real quick, listeners, I just realized we're watching this on a very small screen. There
Oh,
you go.
yeah.
Let's expand the screen. That makes more sense. So Lady J gets caught in a net, and Baroness takes the opportunity
Now,
to describe how
perhaps
nets
you would
work.
like to meet the real Dr. Morita.
And they bring out the real Dr.
Yes,
Morita,
the
who
monster
actually
locket give us
is
the
Pat
information
Morita
they want. But fortunately,
of
you
Karate
have the
Kid
book
fame.
Is he wearing a black belt from Sears?
Well, listen, Lady J just hit a little tracer homing device in her boot, which
You, Bazooka, and
Finally-
Jacob follow her signal and rescue her.
other G.I. Joes other than Duke are using a homing tracer device. They gave Duke a tracer in the first miniseries, and no one else ever has one. And they get kidnapped so often, they could all use with a little tracer.
Okay, question since you've been watching all these again.
Yes.
Has he ever used a single one of those stars?
Throwing stars.
Or is that too confusing for the animator to not have it there?
They have.
Like they're following a model
They've
sheet.
definitely used throwing stars on the show. I don't know if it was Quick Kick that used them though. I know I've seen throwing stars. I feel like Scarlet might have thrown some throwing stars because she has them on her wrist or gauntlet, right, on her arm, like her what's the word I'm thinking? Glove. Glove. That's the word. Because Scarlet has stars on her glove. I think Scarlet's throwing stars in the show.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. That's Goonies-esque. They've got Lady J tied up with Dr. Morita in a dungeon, and there's skeletons.
There
of
are
previous
some
guests.
precarious baskets above the Baroness right now.
Yeah,
They keep showing this.
it's kind of the.
I think we might see more rope antics.
Stroll in with rope antics. Cobra
Nope.
Command.
Oh.
There's those baskets. There's a lot of snakes that
That's
just
a
fell
lot
on
of
these
snakes.
guys. A whole lot of
What
snakes.
variety of snake is this? The blue and white striped polka dotted.
A nasty
Now they just
snake.
changed color,
And
too.
we're going into break with these snakes about to kill our Joes.
Joe will return after these messages.
Imagine this. Hey, we're behind enemy line. What's that? It's the Cobra Bunker. Follow me. Who's got it? The Dreadnoks.
Torch, Ripper, and Buzzer.
Let's tell the Joe. The G.I. Joe checkpoint.
Who's the commando?
Snake Eyes.
And there's Alpine.
And Airtight. And the Joe Air Defense. Yeah!
G.I. Joe Air Defense, G.I. Joe Checkpoint, Cobra Bunker, and Joe and Dreadnoks figures each sold separately from Hasbro. Now, back to G.I. Joe.
I don't know what kind of snake, but once again, we've got an Indiana Jones motif going on here, and I love it.
I'd rather be with these snakes than the ones
Okay.
I also like the symmetry when they use snakes for Cobra, because Cobra obviously snakes, and they'll refer to them. They've done that a few times on the show. Where
I don't know if you know how fire extinguishers work.
How do they work?
They freeze things in a block of ice.
They do.
So if there's ever a fire on your stove, that macaroni and cheese will be encased in a block of ice.
That is fascinating, because that's just what happened. There's a great Buddha in Kamakura. Now, Kamakura actually was a name that they used later on for a Joe character, a good guy ninja. Do you remember that from the Devil's Due stuff? Did you ever get into the Devil's Due stuff?
No.
So
I'm strictly cartoons.
Cartoons?
That's it.
So did you do any of the comics at all?
Marvel.
Marvel, yeah. So you read the Marvel comics. For how long? Like, what was your...
Basically until the origin story of Snake Eyes.
Really? That's just like the first couple of years?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you dropped out. You had enough?
I dropped out of comics in general because I couldn't afford comics. There was those... I would get into those giant, like Secret Wars 2, where all of a sudden you had to buy every issue that Marvel has put out. And
Secret Wars 2 was terrible.
Well, Acts of Vengeance was the one that completely put me under because I had, again, to buy every comic every single week. And they were cool stories because, they were fighting the wrong villains and all this.
Right. So now these guys are all looking for bombs throughout the city of Kamakura. And... of course, tying into the earlier episode, Bazooka finds a bomb, and we're under a minute, and Bazooka's relaying the instructions to everyone to cut these bombs. Do they know that Tripwire is a member of the G.I. Joe squad? Is this a thing that they're aware of? Why are we relying on...
Because they don't need to sell his figure anymore.
Impaired rocket launcher guy.
They're trying to sell Bazooka action figures.
And they sold a lot of them. Bazooka was really... for the record, I love Bazooka. The only thing missing from this episode is Alpine, because I love when Bazooka and Alpine are together. But Bazooka, Alpine, and Quick Kick are a great trio.
Wait, what did he just cut there? Did he try and snip the LED?
Yeah. So here's what I always wondered about bombs. Why couldn't you just rip them all out at the same time? Like, what... Like, what about it...
Right, because if you literally play any video game where you have to disarm a bomb, it's like a little chain thing.
Oh, she just threw a throwing star. So they can handle the animation.
Did she pull it off of Quick Kick?
No, she did not pull it off of Quick Kick. But I think she's got a thing for Bazooka. I think that romance is nice.
Which of the 3 stars do you think it would have been, top, middle, or bottom?
She would have chosen the one closest to his nipple. I do believe. They're making a break for it on some Silver Mirages.
Not doing too well.
Not doing too well. She's a ninja. She's not a motorcyclist. Bazooka comes and grabs her.
That was some ninja move getting into the sidecar there.
Yeah,
that
Scrap
was
Iron's chasing him in the fang. The animation on this episode, I'm not super keen on. There's some episodes that actually look really, really good, and there's some that just look a little loose. This is one of the ones that I feel is a little loose.
I can't eat this stuff.
Well, everybody,
so now we got to wrap the show up, and we're back in Japan. We're having sushi.
Is that
sushi? It looks like octopus, shrimp.
Coiled
but they're drinking.
pink.
They're drinking sake.
Sake.
I can't pronounce anything today.
Octopus.
Oh, it is octopus.
It is octopus.
Just eat it, Bazooka. Fooey.
Don't just look at it, Bazooka. Eat it.
Hamburger?
All right. This is the ultimate debate. Is hamburger better than octopus?
Oh, there's no debate there. That's an answer is yes. And Flint doesn't want to eat it either. Okay, so now the show's wrapping up, and my position stands. The whole opening sequence had absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the episode. I think it was filler. I think they realized they didn't have like any air action. They didn't have any like vehicle action.
What was it a ruse of?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Rescuing the guy?
Right. That's exactly it. This episode, I hate to say it, is it's one of the weaker episodes, like the plot of it doesn't follow through. It's got fun character stuff though. I love seeing Bazooka get romance, and I love Quick Kick. Still has no shirt, but I love Bazooka and I love shirtless Quick Kick.
He didn't do any John Wayne in this episode.
No,
but he did
Alfred Hitchcock.
That Hitchcock thing, which
was amazing.
Trying to explain that to the Korean animators was probably interesting.
So all in all, it's not one of my favorite ones, and it just feels a little disjointed, but still, it's got enough character stuff that I dig it.
I mean, I'll watch any episode.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much for being a guest.
Thanks for having me.
Again, we can find you at the Flowermonger
on Instagram.
Check it out. Check out his floral patterns. And thank you for listening, kids. And now you, Joe. And Joeing is half the battle.